Up until early 2023, if you wanted an aspirational yet approachable retro roadster, you would look at the 350cc class of bikes where the likes of Honda, Java, yes, they went up against the Royal Enfield Classic. But in the past 12 months, you've seen international bike manufacturers joining hands with Indian partners. We first got the Harley-Davidson X440 built alongside Hero MotoCorp in India. And just a few days later, we got the Triumph Speed 400 built alongside Bajaj. So in that sense, Royal Enfield had to retaliate and they brought out the Guerrilla 450.
Exactly, Jayan, because action in the 400 to 450cc space had increased a lot over the past few months, and they had to retaliate because they are the segment leaders in the 350cc segment, and they have got us the Guerrilla 450. It looks like a proper roadster motorcycle. It's based on the Himalayan 450. So let's check out whether the Guerrilla 450 can take on the British brand and the US brand.
Now, one of the main reasons why we are comparing the Guerrilla to the Speed and not the Scrambler is because this just looks rugged. It doesn't have the functionalities or capabilities of going scrambling. In that regard, this is like the Ducati Scrambler icon where you can't do scrambling much, but it just looks beefy and fit for the road. So you get a 17-inch wheels at both ends. Even the suspension travel isn't too much. So in that sense, this comparison is justified over here.
Exactly. It's a scrambler, as you mentioned, for the Ducati, not a multi-strada. In that sense, the speed, yes, we could have taken the Scrambler, but the Scrambler is more of an off-road motorcycle with the long travel suspension, larger wheels, and more importantly, the seat height of that motorcycle is pretty high, and that's why we got the Speed, because I think it is more accessible in that sense. Now, in terms of styling, I think the Triumph Speed 400 looks the most beautiful of the lot. It looks proper, has the right proportions, has the right lines, and just looks proper.
Just the touches, the red contrasting with this golden Wesley fork just looks beautiful in that sense. Speaking about beautiful, this isn't beautiful. This is brash, bold, and I particularly fell in love with this color when I saw it first, and we had to get this one because we didn't want to get the yellow Kali Pili version. Even though that has those funky purple touches, still this looks just wow, because of the blue front wheel, even the subframe. And Royal Enfield in the past with the Bullet and the Classic, they've done hand-painted pinstripes on the tank. But over here, this is hand-masked tank lines. So again, a unique bit of customization, personalization with this color variant.
So basically, the Guerrilla 450 still has that human touch that we have seen on the Bullet 350. Yes, in terms of its styling, the colors. This color is my personal favorite, to get a blue wheel, that blue subframe, and that anodized finish that we had seen on the Himalayan 450 really pops through on this motorcycle. And to carry this color, it needs some personality, and I think the Guerrilla 450 has that personality to take this color and, you know, be very confident on that sense. But the same thing, the Harley-Davidson X440, again, it's not a particularly good looking motorcycle. In isolation, if you see the fuel tank, the headlight, or even the mudguard, it looks nice, but it doesn't just come together.
So those who remember Harley-Davidson folklore very well, they know what this bike is a derivative of. But for an average Indian enthusiast who grew up watching the Fat Boys and other Harley cruisers, this seems like a bit of a disconnect, because the first image when you think of a Harley-Davidson motorcycle for Indians who are growing up in the 90s was Arnold Schwarzenegger jumping the Fat Boy.
Terminator.
Yeah. This is no Terminator motorcycle.
Yeah, because it doesn't have the chrome element, doesn't have that big burly cruiser aura with itself. Yes, the styling has a bit of inspiration from the XR1200, which is something of a modern Harley. In that sense, yes, it has that styling, right, from the XR1200's perspective, but from a Harley-Davidson's perspective, it's not there. But one thing that Harley has got right is the proportion. This motorcycle looks properly big. It looks like a 400, 450cc motorcycle, which is not the case with the Triumph. Even though it's a beautiful looking motorcycle, but the proportions are too small.
Yeah, because when you want to buy a big motorcycle, these two sort of give you that feel, whereas this with its compact and petite build sort of lacks in that sense, right? So yes, it has its advantages, but when you want that feel of a big bike, that is somewhere lacking. Royal Enfield has got the proportions right over here. They've scaled down the Himalayan, but they've not done it in a like a stretched out manner. They've still got the dimensions right. It still feels a little big and masculine in that sense.
Yeah. And now moving forward to the quality levels, again the Triumph hits it out of the park. The kind of fit and finish level on this motorcycle is just
I think this is the best made in India product in that sense. The closest one coming to it is the Aprilia RS 457.
Yes.
But even that, Aprilia cannot match what this bike is priced at, right?
Exactly.
So this is just beautiful. The welds, the finishing, the neatly tucking away of the wires, which was not seen before.
And the thing is that this motorcycle is manufactured by Bajaj Auto is even more impressive because Bajaj motorcycles are not known for their quality. Yes, they have improved in the past few months, we can say with the NS400, they have done it better. And even the Freedom 125, the quality levels are much better.
And even the new Gen Dukes.
Exactly. So the quality levels of the Bajaj motorcycles has improved, and I think the best example of the quality of any Bajaj product for me still is the Speed and the Scrambler 400. Second up in terms of quality levels is the Royal Enfield.
Yeah, they've stepped up their game as well over time, and we've seen not only this new Sherpa platform but even the J series step up. But what I like with the Guerrilla is that they paid key attention to details, like especially this tank shroud over here. So on the Himalayan it was a little exposed, but with the tank rails and the headlight structure, this was not quite as apparent and it was covered that way. If they didn't have this tank shroud, then it would look a little incomplete like it is on the Harley. So this neat touch just make it more cohesive in that sense.
Exactly. Yeah. In terms of the paint finish, Royal Enfield were always good in that sense, but in terms of quality levels of the motorcycle, the weld quality, the panel gaps, you can see that improvement on the Guerrilla 450. Now coming to the Harley-Davidson X440, yes, the quality has improved from the first bike that we rode at CIT. The quality levels on that motorcycle was actually terrible. You can see the panel gaps are better. Yes, there are a lot of loose wires over here. Weld quality has improved, but there is still scope for improvement. And given the price point, the quality levels don't match up. What do you think, Jan?
Considering that is the most expensive bike of them all.
Exactly.
So yeah.
So in terms of quality, Triumph is first, Royal Enfield second, third comes Harley. It still needs to improve a lot. Now let's check out the features which comes on your screen right now.
But how many of these features are actually useful? So let's start with the console itself. Color TFT, semi-digital LCD over here. And my favorite is the one on the Royal Enfield because the layout is clean, neat, and everything is legible and within your eyesight that way, right? You don't need to look down that much. It's over here. Itself.
It's in your point of vision. So let me start with the Harley TFT screen, lot of details, but I think the screen size is a bit too small. Okay, it is not as small as the Speed 400's console because that is a bit confusing.
Yeah, and that analog speedometer over here is the only saving grace.
Yeah.
But confusing the tachometer and the fuel gauge, that becomes a little jarring.
Yeah.
And especially because you have to slow down and look
then
what
see
it
the
is.
console.
So what is that? Plus, that gets turn-by-turn navigation.
Yes.
This gets proper Google Maps navigation.
And on the Triumph, you have to rely on maps because it doesn't have anything. But in terms of the turn-by-turn navigation, works properly on the Harley.
Yeah.
But the Google Maps on the Royal Enfield is much better.
Yeah.
But then again, you have to screencast that thing, which we have always complained.
Yeah, so the Himalayan, the reason for the major battery drain and the data drain is because of the screen mirroring effect. It's not for the navigation or the GPS or whatsoever in that sense. So that's why it consumes a lot of battery and data. That's what Royal Enfield officials have told us. But in that sense, they've given a neat USB-C charger over here, so you can mount your phone and you can charge your phone over here, or you get a slightly longer cable, put it here and sit on the bike, which should not be a problem on the Guerrilla because you don't have to stand up and go off-roading like on the Himalayan. So in that sense, charging capabilities are taken care of over here. Even over here, you get a Type-C USB charger, whereas there you get a slightly old-school proper
the
Type-A.
Harley is still old school with the Type-A, but I think in terms of cable, it doesn't matter too much.
Yeah.
So in terms of navigation, okay, both of them are better. On the Royal Enfield, you also get a different console on the base variant, which again is not a bad console. Yeah,
that console is the one from the Super Meteor or the Hunter, and that also looks neat. And for a little extra additional money, you can also get the Tripper Pod from the MIY catalog.
Yeah. So in terms of features, again, I think Royal Enfield has that edge. Second comes the Harley, and the Triumph is old school.
Yeah.
Okay, Jan, let's move on to performance. Yes, in terms of displacement, all these three motorcycles are pretty similar or nearby, but in terms of nature, every motorcycle is different. Let's start with the Harley, the 440cc engine. Again, a long stroke engine. has lots of torque. It's properly old school in that sense.
Yes, more base heavy, oodles of torque off the line, so you can chill and ride easily, aram se. Not that it's not quick in that sense, but it's just like ki you rather settle down into a good smooth rhythm that way over here, right?
Yeah, I think in terms of the nature, if you're a classic 350 owner, if you want to step up, I think this Harley will be the spiritual successor in that sense, because you will feel at home on this motorcycle.
Yeah.
The nature of this engine is very similar. In terms of J platform, yes, the vibration has come down, but if you are on the UC engine, this engine with its refinement will be very good. It does 100, 110 very easily. Yes, it takes its time. It's not a very quick motorcycle, but it goes to that speed. You can hold that speed very easily on this motorcycle. And because of the low end, you can easily ride this motorcycle in the city, which is not the case with the Guerrilla.
Yeah, Guerrilla again, the similar feeling from the Himalayan, where you have to keep it in a little bit of a revvy nature. You have to work the gearbox slightly to keep it in that right zone per se. Even though Royal Enfield has optimized the engine maps for a slightly better low-end pull, over here you still need to work it. But it still feels aggressive, it feels nice, it feels happy to open the throttle, whack it and go, say, fun chasing that way,
Exactly.
right?
It has a good mid-range. That mid-range punch of this motorcycle is very addictive in that sense, because once you cross like 3000 RPM, 4000 RPM, it just comes alive in that sense. But the low end, again, I had to use a lot of clutch when I was riding at slow speeds. The engine also stalled on a few occasions. I thought Royal Enfield will work on the low end given the kind of feedback that we have given on the Himalayan 450. So in that sense, it's a bit disappointing. The other negative thing is the engine heat. Even though it was a nice cool weather because we are shooting in the monsoon, but you could feel a bit of engine heat on your legs, which isn't the case with these two motorcycles.
Yeah, and also the fueling on this particular motorcycle is a little off. So I think Royal Enfield still needs to work out a few kinks with the Sherpa 450 platform, considering it's their first liquid-cooled engine bike that they've ever
So
made.
it's still a work in progress for Royal Enfield. And moving on to the Triumph.
The Triumph still feels that perfect retro, but a sporty retro motorcycle in that sense. So they've got the heritage down from the Speed Twin 1200, Speed Twin 900 onto this motorcycle. So it feels alive, peppy, very exciting to ride. So in that sense, they couldn't replicate the feeling from the twin cylinder Bonneville platform onto this motorcycle over here, where you want a little bit of a chill. But here it's that you want to be fun, you want to have that punch, and in the city that helps, right?
Yeah. So in terms of the throttle response, I think the Triumph has the best throttle response when you're getting off the line. It feels quick, it feels peppy, it actually feels very alive, and you actually feel connected to the engine. So in that sense, the Triumph is very good. Also, the low-end performance is very nice. The clutch action is very light. So while you want to commute in the city, it's very easy to ride the Triumph. Also the Harley, but not so much with the Guerrilla. But in terms of the highway performance, I think the Guerrilla still has that edge.
Yeah, so when we are cruising at say 100, 110, this feels in the right zone, whereas this feels a little reaching towards the end of its potential. Whereas that is there at 110, 120 max.
Yeah,
nothing
that
beyond
that.
that. Yeah, this can stretch its legs, go to 120, 130 and everything. But again, there is a big issue. Like on the Himalayan, once you crossed 120, it became smooth. Here, once you cross 110, 115, it becomes gruff that way. So overall refinement levels have improved in that sense. So for a usability standpoint, this has become better, but in the higher speeds, this feels a little buzzy, and that sensation just holds you back from pushing this bike. Whereas even over here, from say 75, 80 to 110, it feels nice, but after that, it struggles and it feels buzzy.
So in terms of highway performance, the Harley-Davidson and Royal Enfield have the edge over the Triumph. But in terms of city performance, the Triumph and the Harley do a much better job than the Royal Enfield. And let's check out the fuel efficiency figures.
Limited time with each bike hindered us from properly conducting a thorough fuel efficiency test. However, each bike was ridden in similar conditions and over a similar distance, and over the course of the shoot, the X440 delivered the best fuel efficiency of the lot. Considering it has a more relaxed riding persona and the relatively less stressed engine, we kind of expected that. The Speed 400 comes very close to the X440, just 1 kmpl less, and considering that both motorcycles nearly have the same fuel tank capacity, the range on offer is also likely to be similar. What was a bit of a shocker was the poor fuel efficiency score on the Guerrilla. it only managed to return 19 kilometers to the liter, and that could be down to two primary reasons. In comparison to the other two that have had their first two services done, the Guerrilla was barely ridden in, just 3 kilometers on the odometer when we picked it up. Furthermore, there were a few fueling glitches that might be causing some trouble here as well. However, for a realistic number, you will have to wait until our 500 kilometers endurance test, where we expect the bike to deliver anywhere between 25 and 28 kilometers to the liter, like the Himalayan 450.
And now let's move on to the package that these bikes possess. So that means the chassis, the ergonomics, and what bike gives you the most joy in what scenario.
So let's hit the highway and let's continue our discussion about the ergonomics. The Harley has a very different ergonomics compared to these two motorcycles, because I was riding the Guerrilla and I shifted to the Harley, and I was searching for the foot peg because it's a bit front set. And in terms of the riding posture, it has the most upright riding posture among the three. Nice wide handlebar, nice big foot peg, the fuel tank shape, the seat size. It just feels like a Harley in that sense, in terms of the riding posture.
Almost like a big burly Harley cruiser in that sense. Man, that's the strong point of this motorcycle, where you're sitting on the highway, you want comfort, you want chill. That is where the Harley gives you that good command, and even in the city, that's quite a nice feeling, because to maneuver around traffic,
a lot of leverage through the handlebar.
Yeah, similar over here also you get a lot of leverage, but the Guerrilla is lower. That is at 805 mm, this is 780 mm. So still, shorter riders might feel a little bit of a dicey thing, especially because the tank and the seat go wide over there, right? So you have to widen your legs to reach the floor. Similar is the case here, but 780 mm, so slightly lower. In that sense, this is sort of a middle ground between these two, whereas it's not quite as relaxed but not quite as aggressive over here. It puts you in the right zone to have the fun when you're going corner carving, but also a neat little highway motorcycle in that sense. So very upright, slightly like the Royal Enfields that we know. So this feeling of, say, wind in your face.
Yeah. The other problem with the Harley-Davidson is the weight, because this is a heavy motorcycle. So for shorter riders, the width of the motorcycle can be an issue. And in general, it's a heavy motorcycle per se. The Triumph, again, very light, very easy. The riding posture is slightly sporty, but not overly sporty. Feels very nice to ride, and also in terms of the agility, just feels much better in the city.
Yeah, hence why the advantage of a small, petite, compact motorcycle over there, right? So the seat height is pretty similar between these two. Because it is slim in the midsection, you can easily flat foot both legs, and the sense of connection on the motorcycle is far more prominent on this motorcycle, because you're seated in a slightly sporty commuting stance in that sense over here. So yes, it just puts you in a little bit of a focused stance, but overall it's still fairly comfortable. Not quite as comfy as the Harley, but still it does the job well.
Yeah, but the only issue with the Triumph, again, it's a good motorcycle for shorter riders, as we mentioned. That's why we took the speed over the Scrambler in this comparo. But in terms of proportion, the same thing comes back, because if you are a big rider or a tall rider like me, or Jehan for that matter, you will feel cramped for space on the Triumph.
Yeah, in fact, when any of the taller riders suggest us which Triumph to get, we tell them, look at the Scrambler, not because of its urban performance, but just because it's comfy for taller riders.
No space on that.
Over here, you feel cramped and two knees up in that sense, so not a lot of room for leverage. Plus, the handlebars are also small, so might become a little tricky that way. So, ergonomics-wise, that is comfiest, this is sportiest, this is somewhere in the middle.
Middle ground, and I think that's where is the forte of the Guerrilla 450. Now, let's move forward to the fun bit, which is the handling.
Yeah.
Again, in terms of handling, the nature of the Harley-Davidson comes through. It's much more mature, much more calmer, easier. It can go through the corners. Yes, it will take some fast corners, but again, the tires are not the best out here. The foot pegs gets grinded easily, so it likes to take things very chill.
You remember at CITV, you were grinding the exhaust cover also over there. So it has the potential, but what's holding us back, especially in this inclement weather, are the tires. Now, we've complained about the Pirelli Phantom Sports Comp design itself on the original Interceptor, the first gen. And we don't know why MRF tried to copy that and give it on the Harley-Davidson. So we wish that there were slightly better tires, slightly grippier tires on the Harley. In that sense, a similar problem over here is also present on the Guerrilla, the Seat block patterns. yes, they are more aesthetic, but they do come in a little bit of a way from the grip perspective, right? So while the handling of it is quite nice, it's quite enjoyable, but even over here, slight holdback, not as much as on the Harley.
Yeah, I think the front end, especially for me, I think the front end is too wide, like especially going through slow speeds. Unnecessary, it was feeling heavy. I think if they had gone for a slightly slimmer profile, it would have been better in terms of the...
But then that's the conundrum, right? This has got a sport bike rake angle, in that sense almost 21.8 degree rake, and a long wheelbase when you factor in like these three motorcycles. This is quite long in that sense. So they had to give it that stability. So hence, a typical 400, 450cc motorcycle gets 110, 150 section tires like the Speed has. This is a 120 and 160. So that is where that stability angle comes into it when you're taking a little bit of an enthusiastic spirit.
Yeah, and in terms of handling also, it is fun handling. The Guerrilla has that fun factor when you want to push it through the corners. Yes, the tires are not the best out over here, but the chassis is very good. But in terms of pure joy of handling, Triumph. It just takes it. The handling is superb.
The chassis, the suspension tuning, and even the Apollos, they complement this bike's character well. If it was something more powerful, then they start feeling a little shaky. But here on the Speed, with the adequate amount of performance, they hold up quite well. And in the rain, it gave us quite a lot of confidence when we wanted to push it in each of the bends.
Exactly. Like in the kind of weather conditions that we were riding at here in Tamini Ghat, the tires on the Triumph, they were giving you so much confidence, and it was feeling much safer than these two motorcycles. The most nervous I felt was on the Harley, these tires. The Guerrilla tires are still slightly better.
In one of the regards, when we were passing a stream of water, when the waterfall was there was a little bit of a moment
you had.
and I was scared. I had to take a breather. So that's what, tires are a bit of a letdown over there.
But in terms of pure handling, I think the Triumph has the edge in fast handling. And also when you want to commute, the agility factor, because it's lightweight, the front is very easy to steer. It has that edge. Second thing, for city, maybe the Harley and the Royal Enfield are kind of similar in that sense. But in terms of fast cornering, the Royal Enfield has that edge.
Correct. But when you take a step back and when you want to say commuting, or when you are looking at urban commuting in that sense, the comfiest of the lot feels the Harley-Davidson because of the softer suspension setup. This is the best tuned suspension of them all, right? This feels soft, plushy. So short ride, small ride, this will feel nice, but it starts to get wallowy over the larger
But then again, Jan, that's the character of the Harley. It doesn't want to go fast. It just wants to do everything in a nice, composed manner. And in terms of that, the suspension's tuning is spot on what Harley-Davidson engineers have managed. The Guerrilla is good, but it somehow is not here, not there.
I think the finesse and the sophistication that we saw on the Himalayan seems a bit lacking here, and that's why we feel a little, we wish that was there over here, right? But I think they couldn't manage that with this format of a motorcycle also. So suspension wise, the Triumph, when you go over anything, you will notice what is there underneath, but it dampens them out perfectly. Even mid-corner bumps, there's no unsettling feeling over here,
you know,
right?
It's there, but it's not going to affect you.
So in that sense, suspension quality, I will give it to this. Suspension comfort, I will give it to the Harley.
And the Royal Enfield is a bit here and there in that sense.
Again, that's becoming a similar theme. And when you're talking about braking, this has phenomenal stopping performance over here, right?
Because very sharp, very nice, the modulation of the lever is also spot on.
Sintered pads help over here. Again, in that sense, even the tires do make a difference over here. So when you want to stop, especially in this weather, it was just like pop and stopped, right? This Royal Enfield also quite a good stopper. This has slightly smaller disc at the front when compared to the Himalayan, but still there's no problem as such. The Harley, again, because of its chill, relaxed vibe, you feel a little bit of a squishiness, but it's not too bad.
Means the modulation is a bit soft in that end. It stops, it's a heavy motorcycle, but it just puts a bit of a doubt in your mind, which is not the case with these two motorcycles. So in terms of braking, the Triumph has the edge, the Guerrilla 450 is close to that, and the Harley, again, is a bit soft in that sense.
So now let's just take a look at the entire package as a whole, and let's see which bike is for whom.
So Jan, let's talk money. In that sense, again, the Triumph has the edge. It was launched at 2.23 lakh rupees ex-showroom, and that was like a wow moment we had, especially after the pricing of the Harley-Davidson. We thought Hero had done a great job with the Harley's pricing, and then comes Bajaj and spoils the party. Then the price got up by 10,000, but now again, it's back to 2.23 lakhs.
Yeah, seems like Bajaj, I don't know why, wants to be generous and is offering a discount because of the certain arrival of another motorcycle. Maybe, whatsoever. But to their credit, they have sold 50,000 bikes in the past 12 months globally as well as India. But I think the majority of the sales have been here
domestic market.
in the country. In that sense, Harley, I don't think so, has sold quite a lot because of its expansion, network and everything, all that is being worked on. So here, the Royal Enfield starts at 2.39 lakh, which is closer to this. But the top end version, which is this 2.54 lakh, is equivalent to the mid version of the X440.
Yeah.
So that is the thing. And the X440 top is 2.79 lakh.
And that is a lot of money for a motorcycle like this. I think Harley-Davidson could have priced the bike better, and no wonder even they are giving out discounts on the motorcycle. The Guerrilla 450 comes in between these two motorcycles with respect to pricing. I still feel they could have been a bit more aggressive, but that's the trend that Royal Enfield has been following in the past few years, where they are charging a premium. The Harley-Davidson, our favorite variant is the mid variant, which we'll go for. And for the Guerrilla 450, which is the variant that you would be like in terms of the pricing and the
this color,
yeah,
because they just look beautiful, right?
Exactly, but then again, you have to shell out a lot of money. So in terms of pricing, the Triumph again has got it spot on.
Yeah.
The Royal Enfield, again, because it is offering you a lot of options to choose from, comes second. And sheer pricing, again, in terms of the pricing, the Harley-Davidson is on the expensive end. I think they need to get the pricing down. I can understand the reason for that. Could be that Hero has the Maverick, Harley-Davidson is there, so they want to have some distinction between these two motorcycles. But then again, a 10,000-15,000 price cut might help its case, and also the expansion of dealership.
Like it has happened on the mid variant, which was at 2.59 lakh rupees or something. Now they gave her a limited period discount of 15,000 rupees, so it's come down to 2.35 lakh or 2.45 lakh or something of that sort. So yes, the prices of the mid variant are lower until stocks last, but overall it's still a pricey motorcycle. And in that sense, when you buy either of these three, you know that because of Royal Enfield's extensive network of service and dealerships and everything, you will not be left stranded at any place in India.
Exactly, because that's the thing with a motorcycle. You're supposed to go out and ride, and when you're out riding, something can happen. And in that sense, Royal Enfield gives you that assurance because of the vast dealership network. Triumph has worked really hard. They have crossed the 100 dealership mark. Harley-Davidson is still working. We are not sure whether you can still service this motorcycle with some select Hero motorcycle dealerships or service centers. They are trying to figure that out. But in terms of the service cost also, we think this will be on the higher end.
Yeah, more or less, because our friends who bought the Himalayan 450, their service bills, the second service bills come to around 1,500, 1,600 rupees. Whereas my brother who owns the Scrambler 400X, his second service bill was around 2,300 rupees. And the Duke or something in that regards is say 1,900, 2,000 rupees. So we expect a similar pricing over here. We don't know quite about the Harley-Davidson, but we expected same 2,200 to 2,400 should be the service
I think
bills.
the Harley-Davidson will be closer to the Triumph than the Royal Enfield. So in terms of the service cost, in terms of the availability of dealerships and service centers, the Royal Enfield has that edge, and Harley-Davidson needs to improve that.
But what remains to be seen is the parts cost, right? Because we've not seen what these fancy premium looking bits and bobs on the Triumph cost, whereas that feels a little simple, shall I put it? So I don't think so. Plus Hero being Hero, parts are dirt cheap on
for
Hero
the Hero
motorcycles,
and we expect the same over here.
Similar, whereas Royal Enfield is good par for the course.
Yeah, so in terms of pricing and space, there's clearly that the Royal Enfield has a better dealership. In terms of pricing, the Triumph is up there. Harley again needs to improve. And let's pick a winner, and that's not as easy, Jihan, as we had thought in the beginning.
Can I say something that out of these three, there is one motorcycle that is not to my liking at this point in time in my life. Okay? That is because that's the Harley. Because that is a little too chill, too sedate for my taste for at this point in my life, because I still am younger of the two of us. And
basically, you're calling me old, but
no, but But that is for a matured buyer, right?
Yeah.
That's for a guy who's liking that chilled, sweet zone, who's looking to step up from, say, the old UC Classic in that sense. So that would fit the bill better over there.
Yeah, it has the same nature. Like if you had the old Royal Enfield, you want to upgrade, don't want the Interceptor 650, want something different, the Harley-Davidson is a good step up. Has that badge value. Again, that Harley-Davidson badge has a lot of pull, which is not the case. Like even Royal Enfield is aspirational, but Harley has that edge. So if you want a nice, chill, relaxed motorcycle among the three, the Harley makes the cut. Yes, the pricing could have been better, and so could be the quality level of the motorcycle.
And I think there is another single cylinder, chilled, relaxed, roadster motorcycle coming from a certain British bike manufacturer very soon. So that will be some good competition with the X440.
Yeah, could be. Now let's
let us know which bike I'm talking about in the comments.
Now let's move on to the Guerrilla 450. Yes, it's a nice, proper roadster. It has its own character. It is brashy, it is loud, it is fun. What's your take, Jan?
I think it's the most balanced motorcycle of the three, right? So the mid ground, hitting that not too sporty but not too sedate, not too aggressive but not too calm in that sense also. And the ergonomics are also quite spot on in that sense. So it puts in a nice zone. The engine also, it's a nice, sweet, funky motor, I should say that way. So it's got good torque in the mid-range. And overall, this feels like the sportiest or the most engaging Royal Enfield yet.
Yeah,
but there's still a little bit that they could have done to make it even, say, more connected.
Like, yes, I think if Royal Enfield had worked on the Shaper 450 engine and given it that low-end performance, the Guerrilla 450 would have been a better all-rounder in that sense.
Or given it even mental performance. We don't mind that also.
But yeah, great job with the Guerrilla 450 in terms of the character, in terms of the personality of the motorcycle. And then we move forward to the Triumph. Again, it feels the youngest of the lot in terms of that whole character of that engine. It just feels more alive, that engine.
Yes, the spirit of, say, the Triumph, modern, sporty retro motorcycle comes alive over here. And when you factor in all of the bits that make it so beautiful, so affordable, so accessible, this just clearly stands out as a cut above in that respect. Yes, it's not perfect, but what it does really well. Like the commuting, like the agility business. There is
even the fast cornering on that sense.
None of these two match it over here.
Yeah, so the Guerrilla 450 does a lot of good things, but it's not like great in certain aspects. Whereas that Speed 400, in terms of that performance, in terms of the engagement, in terms of the involvement, it does a good job. And in terms of the styling also, it looks properly good, the quality levels are good. And in the end, the price is a big factor. And they have got the pricing also perfect. But in terms of the character, both these motorcycles are different. They are individual in that sense.
Yeah, all three are quite individually strong in that sense. But if you had to pick a bike of these three, which one would you ride home?
So even though it's a bit cramped for me, I'll still pick the Speed 400.
I think I'm a little smitten by the Guerrilla just for the fact that this has a flat track kit on it, and I'm looking to go flat tracking with this bike. Hopefully Royal Enfield gives us a long tubber and we convert it into a good flat tracker, and more development of this happens soon.
And the thing is, Dhyan likes things flashy. So I'm not surprised that he picked the Guerrilla 450.
Yeah.
I'll take the Speed 400 and our DOP Anand will take the Harley-Davidson.
Yeah, so which one of these three is your pick? Do let us know in the comment section below. Did you like this sort of a video? Do let us know that as well. And if you have any further queries regarding these three bikes or any other motorcycle in that sense, drop them over there as well. Don't forget to like and share this video. Subscribe to our channel. Subscribe and follow us on our Instagram page as well, because we bring cool content over there. And before we end, please always wear riding gear on all your rides.